considering de Minaur's, recent performance in Rotterdam. On the surface, reaching a new career-high ranking of world number 6.
It's incredible.
It is incredible.
Yeah.
But kind of hint at a more, complex story beneath the surface.
Right. It's like congrats on a new ranking, but also like you lost in the final to Alcaraz again.
Exactly. And while making the final of an ATP 500 event like Rotterdam is significant for any player, the loss itself, coupled with his own comments about it, raises some, interesting questions.
Like, why does he sound almost relieved to have lost to Alcaraz?
Yeah.
In that interview, he says, with Carlos, I feel more comfortable. I can target him and make his life difficult.
Right.
Is that kind of backwards?
It might seem counterintuitive, but it speaks to the nuances of their playing styles. Alcaraz is known for this aggressive, high-risk style, which actually plays into de Minaur's strengths.
Because de Minaur is like such a speed demon on the court. He can like basically chase down anything and use Alcaraz's power against him.
Precisely, de Minaur excels at counterpunching, absorbing his opponent's pace, and redirecting it against a player like Alcaraz, who's constantly attacking this, becomes a very effective strategy.
Oh.
And remember, de Minaur almost beat Alcaraz in Barcelona back in 2022. So this isn't just a one-off fluke.
Interesting. Okay, so he can handle the heavy hitters, but what about when he faces someone who's, well, let's just say less accommodating? Enter the Sinner conundrum.
Ah, yes, the one opponent de Minaur just can't seem to crack.
Yeah.
A score confirms it a 10-0 head-to-head record in favor of Sinner.
Oof.
Reveal de Minaur's frustration, almost bewilderment. He says, with Jannik, it's definitely different, and I haven't been able to do anything yet.
It's almost like Sinner is like de Minaur's kryptonite, right?
Right.
So what makes this matchup so difficult for him?
That's what we're going to unpack. It's not simply about ranking. It's about the clash of styles and the mental game.
So we've got this speedster de Minaur who can like dismantle aggressive players, but then there's Sinner, this wall he just can't seem to climb.
Yeah.
What's Sinner doing that's so effective?
Well, de Minaur himself points to Sinner's consistency and ability to raise his level in crucial moments. Sinner doesn't give him much to work with, doesn't make many errors, and stylistically their games are a bit of a mismatch.
Because Sinner's got those like flat, heavy ground strokes, not as much pace for de Minaur to feed off of.
Right. De Minaur usually thrives by redirecting his opponent's power, but Sinner's shots are different. They're flat and penetrating, making them harder to control. It's like trying to counterpunch a laser beam.
Whoa, so Sinner kind of shuts down de Minaur's like best weapon, his speed and counterpunching?
Essentially, yes. And remember, tennis is as much a mental battle as it is a physical one. Maybe Sinner's unwavering composure, something he's even shown against Djokovic, throws de Minaur off his game.
Yeah, it's interesting because de Minaur has beaten other top players, right? Nadal, Medvedev twice, Rublev, Fritz. He can topple giants, but Sinner's this like unsolvable puzzle.
And that's what makes tennis so fascinating. It's not a simple hierarchy of rankings, individual matchups. Those stylistic and mental clashes, they matter immensely.
Okay, but hold on. Before we get too deep into the Sinner history, let's zoom out a bit. The Tennis Majors article emphasizes de Minaur's overall evolution. He hasn't become an overnight sensation. It's been years of incremental improvement.
Exactly. He's always had the speed and the fighting spirit, but now his serve is a weapon, his ground strokes are more potent, and his mental game, that's where the biggest change is.
Right. The article quotes him talking about how working with a sports psychologist has given him this new level of clarity on the court. He's not just running on instinct anymore. There's this deliberate approach to his game.
And that mental aspect could be crucial in solving the Sinner puzzle, too. Maybe it's not just about tactical adjustments, but overcoming a mental block, believing he can win even when the history isn't on his side.
So even for someone like in the top 10, the mental game is still a work in progress. That's something we can all relate to, right? No matter what level we're at, that constant self-belief, that striving for improvement, it's crucial, but let's be real, those Sinner losses have to sting.
Absolutely. And yet he's not letting them define him. He's become a leader for the next generation of Aussie players, the backbone of their Davis Cup team, as that article calls it.
Yeah, the aspiring guys like Rinky Hijikata, who just cracked the top 100. Maybe de Minaur won't win a Grand Slam himself, but could he be the catalyst for someone else to do it, pass the torch, so to speak?
That's an intriguing thought. He's already reached the quarterfinals of a major, the US Open in 2020, but as your sources point out, his next challenge is consistently beating top 10 opponents at the Grand Slams.
Which he hasn't managed yet. He lost to Sinner at the Australian Open and to Djokovic, both in the fourth round, so he's right there knocking on the door, but can he actually break through?
That's the big question. He's proven he can beat the best outside of the Grand Slams, but can he replicate that success on the biggest stage under the most intense pressure?
It's like there are two de Minaurs, right? The giant slayer who takes down Nadal and Medvedev, and then the guy who can't win a set against a top 10 player at a major. So which de Minaur will we see going forward? So we've got this like almost Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde situation with de Minaur dominant against some top players, but then seemingly powerless against others, especially Sinner.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, what's the key to like unlocking his full potential, especially at the Grand Slams?
Well, the sources you provided offer some clues. Remember how the Tennis Majors article highlighted de Minaur's evolution, particularly the added power to his game.
Uh-huh.
Perhaps that's the missing ingredient against Sinner.
So instead of relying solely on counterpunching, maybe he needs to take the fight to Sinner, dictate the pace, disrupt that rhythm that Sinner thrives on.
Exactly. We know he can redirect power effectively against aggressive players, but maybe against Sinner, he needs to be the aggressor, force Sinner out of his comfort zone, make him react instead of the other way around.
Yeah, that would definitely require a shift in mindset, wouldn't it? It's almost like he needs to play against Sinner's game, not just against Sinner himself.
Precisely. And remember, de Minaur has been working on his mental game too. Maybe in addition to tactical changes, he needs to find a way to mentally unsettle Sinner. Every player has vulnerabilities, even someone as mentally tough as Sinner.
So it's not just about hitting the ball harder, it's about hitting it smarter and playing the mental game as well.
Absolutely. And, you as someone who's clearly following de Minaur's career closely are going to have a front row seat to see how he approaches this challenge.
It's what makes it so fascinating, right? We've gone beyond just analyzing match results. We're talking tactic styles, the mental game. It's a whole new level of understanding.